Hi, everyone. A very good evening from Mindset Talks and from me personally to you. We have yet another exciting episode planned for you, wonderful folks who is watching this episode right now. And we have an amazing individual present here with us today, who I actually have had the pleasure of knowing for the past 13, 14, maybe 15 years. Is that right, Ammar?
I think so. Yeah, around that time should be. When did you join school? 2007?
I think it was 2006, 2006, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, 15 years now. 15
15
years.
years. Wow, 15 years is a very, very long time. Time flies when you have fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
Exactly.
There should be some weird. There should be a term for 15 years, right? Like a century is 100 years. Um, I remember that you're
True.
the English guy. You should know this.
15 years. 15 years. Okay. Half a century, quarter of a century. Why not call it quarter
No,
of a
that's
century then?
25.
Oh, okay.
That's 25.
15.
It's okay. It's okay. You're the
50.
English guy, not the math guy. That's fine.
Yeah, I've always been terrible at maths, as evidence in our school life. So yeah.
Uh,
And all right, so I have my cup of coffee ready right over here, Ammar. I hope you are ready for today's episode. Yeah.
yeah, with that's my cup of tea because I don't drink coffee.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
And before we begin, actually, why don't you give a very brief description about yourself to the audience and to people watching this episode here today? Who is Ammar Ilyas?
Okay, so my name is Ammar Ilyas. I am 22 years old. I've been a classmate with Safe or off Safe for, as he said, since 2006. And then 2014, he went to Sri Lanka. And then I never saw him again. I haven't seen you since 2014, That is like crazy. But we're still in touch, so that's a good thing. And yeah, so I work as an accountant. I studied in Malaysia, and I've lived in Saudi my whole life. I'm working in Saudi Arabia as well right now, and I'm pretty excited and honored to be the one of your earliest guests in your podcast, and I'm really excited to see how this goes.
Thank you so much, Ammar. And how was life in Malaysia, if I must ask, comparing it to Saudi? How was life in Malaysia for you?
Life in Malaysia was so much more diverse than Saudi Arabia. Like
Mhm.
you have people in Saudi Arabia that you meet that are not from the same place as you, but usually they are from the same continent as you, right? So we're talking people from the neighboring Arab countries and also people from the countries neighboring your motherland, so India, Pakistan, etc. But when you go to Malaysia, the student climate over there is so much more diverse. So you have people from the west, the east, the north, the south. You have people from Asia, from Europe, and even Malaysia itself. They're made of different cultures, which is Malay, Chinese, and Indian. So you have different cultures to experience within Malaysia itself. So when you mingle outside these cultures also and you mingle with other foreign students, you get to experience their culture as well. So
Mhm.
I spent 3 years in Malaysia. 3 years just flew by because I was having so much fun, and I really miss that country.
Okay.
It's not as involving as Saudi. Sorry, it's not Saudi is not as involving as Malaysia, I should say. And yeah, it was a very good part of my life and something that I would treasure. It was very, very fun.
That's amazing. That's actually amazing to hear. But I mean, has the or was did actually did the cultural diversity in Malaysia? I mean, did it inspire you in a certain way? Because I mean, you and me, we come back from the same background, right? We grew up in Saudi. But did you think that the cultural diversity in Malaysia sort of inspired you in any way?
I think so, yeah, because
Okay.
you know how when you're in Saudi, you're only exposed to a limited environment. You know, you are most of the time, or if not all the time, surrounded by people who are not different from you, right? So we're
Mhm.
talking people from the same country, people with the same background, people with the same religion, you know. And with all of this comes people with the same mindset, the same views, the same morals, the cultures, and so on and so forth. So you're not really outside your comfort zone. You're not really living your life with an open mind. But when you go to Malaysia, you have all of a sudden people and friends that you disagree with on certain levels. You have people, you have friends that you are not really sure how to feel about something that they do, for example, you know. And with all of this comes a lot of changes to your personality and the way you view life. And this has without a doubt caused me to try things and get myself exposed to things that I wouldn't really have been exposed to if I had stayed in Saudi Arabia. And like I look at myself, you know, in two parts, like the part of me before I went to university and the part that graduated university. And university itself
Okay.
was a huge transformational place for me, because if I had stayed in Saudi Arabia and I had done my studies, say in Saudi or Sri Lanka, I don't think I would have tried half the things that I've tried up to this day. It was in Malaysia, the culture and the people that I was exposed to that really motivated me to try stand up comedy, for example. It was the culture, the people that really motivated me to try running. It was the people, the culture that really motivated me to be more outgoing, you know, network with people, make friends, and really place a priority in exploring different points of views, people that are different from me. And of course, it was in Malaysia where I started my podcast as well. And that is where I think the podcast has been the source of most discomfort for me ever since I started it. And the entire idea of seeking discomfort and growing and challenging myself and conquering my fears started from Malaysia itself. And that is 100% due to the culture and the people and the opportunities that I was presented with when I was there.
Wow, that's quite impressive actually. I have to say that, Ammar, because not many people would think the way you think when they experience a sort of cultural shock, I would say, right? Because I mean, when you go to a new environment, you face a cultural shock and you're like wondering, what the hell am I doing here? Do I actually deserve like being here? And then the sort of imposter syndrome starts kicking in. But let's not talk about that for a moment. Tell me more about your podcast, Ammar. I'm very, very interested to know about that. How did it start?
Well, well, it's difficult to really answer that question because I'm not really. I don't really have a set because traditionally when someone says they're starting a podcast, it is usually centered around a topic. It is usually centered around a theme, something that they want to explore, something that they want to impart. You know, maybe it's an educational podcast that they want to impart their wisdom to their listeners. But for me, the podcast was more of a vehicle to conquer my fear, right? Anything that I do
Okay.
nowadays is to conquer my fear, whether that be starting a podcast, trying stand-up comedy, going running, trying jiu-jitsu and whatnot, right? But
Yeah.
I've when I was in Malaysia, I began to realize like how conscious I was of myself when it comes to being on a public platform, you know, because in Saudi Arabia, because you study in SLIC, you can attest to this.
Yeah.
There is a real stigma of creating content online, right? There is a real stigma of not only between our parents but also within our friends, people of our age groups. You know, I remember countless times in school when someone started a YouTube channel or when someone started posting something on Facebook or Instagram, something that is their original content, right? There was
Okay.
always an aura of this is cringy, this is lame, this is not needed. You know, this guy's a loser and whatnot. People used to make fun of them,
Yeah.
right? And that really stuck with me. I feel like because when I went to Malaysia and I see all of these people just posting stuff, you know, people are very vocal about their political, their religious views online, right? And when I try to do that, I feel something stopping me, you know, and I feel like this is that culture from our school had sort of like been carried
Yeah.
on over into university. So this really bothered me because I'm at a place when right now, if I'm afraid of something, I can't really stand without conquering it or without making a move on it, right? Like I cannot sit
Okay.
still, like I cannot accept the fact that I'm afraid of something. So when I began to realize, like, okay, I'm really afraid of how people are going to see me if I post this online, how people are, going to see me if I do this online, I began to realize that I have to do something about it. And that is when the idea of the podcast came alive, because I used to love listening to podcasts. When I was in Malaysia, I got into that habit as well. Like my Malaysian friends, if you ask them, they would never see me without my headphones, which is which shows you how much I was always listening, right? It was always around my forehead or it was around my neck whenever I'm going to and from university.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, so why not start a podcast? But I never really got the chance to do it in Malaysia itself. So when I came to Saudi
Okay.
and quarantine had hit and COVID and the pandemic and all that, I had a lot of time in my hands. I'm like, okay, why not
Mhm.
start it? And yeah, so initially it was about a concept of bringing two people with opposing points of views and see how they interact. And then it was exploring the idea of being a craftsman, who is
Okay.
someone always seeking to improve in the social, spiritual, physical, and creative aspects of their lives. And right now I'm exploring a different concept as well. So I haven't really set
Okay.
to a specific format of the podcast, but to me personally, my podcast has always been a vehicle to conquer my fear rather than imparting knowledge. You know,
That's amazing. That's amazing, actually. And how has that journey been so far in your journey to, of course, experience new things and to conquer your fears? How has that journey been so far for you?
well, okay. So if you were to judge which would be more scary, right? Posting
Yeah.
podcast audio episodes on the internet or trying out stand up comedy live in front of an audience. I feel like most of them would choose that trying stand up comedy is the most scary thing because the fear of embarrassment and your jokes failing and all that. But for me,
Mhm.
is the other way around. I rather go to 100 stand up comedy shows than put out one episode of the podcast because I'm really afraid of not only it's not just my the voice, right? It's the fact that
Yeah.
my face is on the Instagram pages. People can go and look at me and judge that what I'm saying is either false or is stupid or cringy or stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it really scares me. So I've been like on and off the podcast for about a year and a half now. And
Okay.
I still haven't really conquered the fear. Like I'm no longer afraid of doing stand up comedy. I'm no longer afraid of doing poetry. I tried poetry in Malaysia as well. I'm no longer
Yeah.
afraid of a lot of things, but I'm still afraid of putting myself out there for people to judge me. And
Mhm.
that is something I really, really want to work on. And it's something that I'm figuring out, like because when you're scared of something and you want to conquer the fear, it's a very, very slow climb. It's not something you
Mhm.
can conquer in a week or two, right? It takes a long time. Sometimes it might take a month, sometimes it might take years. So I've figured out that this fear is something that I have to keep working on slowly, chipping away slowly, so that
Yeah.
one day, maybe years down the road, I can wake up and tell myself I'm no longer afraid of putting stuff on the internet. So
You know,
it's a very slow climb.
I mean, it's even though if it's a slow plan, Ammar, you're still going forward, right? I mean, you're not held back in one position by an anchor or
Yep.
something, right? Even if it's a slow process, you're still going forward. So kudos to that, actually, right? And it's funny that you mentioned the difference
Yeah,
between
100%.
doing stand-up comedy and uploading a podcast. Because if you were asked that question from me personally, I would honestly tell you uploading a video podcast of yourself is one of the most terrifying things ever. It really, really is, because you don't know what to expect. You don't know what people are going to
Yeah.
be talking about you. They take one look at your content, and are they thinking, okay, this guy is straight up spitting facts, or he's talking nothing but utter bullshit, you know? So that entire fear was running through my mind, and I have to ask you, actually, when you were recording your very, very first episode, and as soon as you were done, when you were uploading it, what were the thoughts running in your mind? Because for me, it was just absolutely crazy.
Well, vehicle for me to conquer my fear, right? I expected this to be just like any other venture of mine where after a few episodes, I would have completely gotten over the fear of posting myself on the internet.
Yeah.
So when I first uploaded my first episode, which was around 7 minutes long, I actually typed out the entire script on Microsoft Word and I was just reading off the screen the whole time because I was
Okay.
very nervous. But when I was uploading it, as soon as I uploaded it, I switched off my phone, I threw it inside my cupboard, and I went to bed because I was really terrified of what people are going to say. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I felt really proud of myself because anytime I'm able to overcome a fear, I feel like that accounts for something, whether the episode goes really badly or whether it goes really well. The fact that I was able to overcome my fear because no one was really forcing me to do this, right? This wasn't
Yeah.
schoolwork. This was my own venture. This was something that I took upon as a challenge by myself. Like if I had told the entire world that I'm going to start a podcast tomorrow and then tonight I decide that I'm no longer starting a podcast, no one would care because no one was holding me accountable for it. I was holding myself accountable. And the fact that I'm able to hold myself accountable for these small challenges, right? Sometimes when it seems like no one really cares that you're doing this, right? But you still go ahead and do it because it's important to you and you realize what a big step this is for yourself, then it's a point of pride for me. And I felt really good about myself, but at the same time, really, really terrified. It was like if you drink hot chocolate and then you just chug a glass of ice at the same time. It's the meaning of hot and cold at the same time.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was basically the feeling. And I went to bed and woke up the next morning and I didn't check my phone till 12 p.m. the next day. And yeah, and then my dad was pretty excited that I did something, so he forwarded the episode to all his contacts, and there was an outpouring of support, and it felt really good. It went really well.
That's amazing. That's absolutely brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant, Amar. I mean, it's a very good thing you brought up how your dad was very, very supportive. So when you told your family, when you told your friends that you're gonna start this new venture of yours, which is Let's Agree to Disagree, right? The podcast. What were the
Yeah,
what were the comments? What was the feedback? Did you get any positivity, any negativity, naysayers, if you will?
I feel like I was very lucky in this regard because the first person I
Mhm.
told about the podcast was to my dad, I think.
Okay.
And what I told him was, I went to him and I told him I want to start a podcast. And the first thing he was like, why? And then I told him because it really interests me and I went through the whole process. I didn't really tell him that this was me trying to get over my fear because I didn't
Mhm.
think that it would I didn't think that I would be able to convey that point very well. So I told him about how this gives me an opportunity to practice my speaking skills. It gives me an opportunity to network with people and all of that. And then he was like, okay, if you want to go for it, just go for it. And then I told him, I want to do this properly. I want to invest in mics and I want to get do this properly and all of that. And by the time I was working, and that job
Yeah.
wasn't really fulfilling for me. So I told him this is a distraction from the job because I really want to channel my creativity towards something.
Mhm.
And then he was all on board for it. My mom didn't really understand what the concept was, but the moment she saw me speaking into a microphone, it looked all professional and all that, then she was really on board as well. Not that she
Yeah.
was against it at first, but she just didn't understand. I don't think she understands still very much now, but she knows what a podcast is, right? And she supports me. And my friends, by the time I had told them that I was doing a podcast, I had already garnered the reputation of Ammar is the guy who does these weird, crazy things that no one really tries, stand-up comedy, running, and all that. So, so when we were out on Thursday night, and I told them I'm going to start a podcast, they were like, "Oh, cool, that's sweet," all of that, and they thought I was joking.
Mhm.
And then when I actually
Okay.
started recording and all of that, and then like, "Oh, you're really serious about it?" I'm like, "Yeah," and then they were supportive of it as well. And yeah, it's been a really good journey, and surprisingly no one really has given me any negativity towards this but
Wow.
myself. I keep telling myself, like, why do you even bother doing the podcast? Why do you even bother doing this? You're just putting out
Yeah.
cringiness on the internet and all of that. But really no one has supported those claims. Like, everybody has been
Yeah.
so positive and so supportive of my podcast except myself, which is the crazy thing, because my insecurity about putting myself on the internet is still nagging at me whenever I take out this microphone.
I mean, do you think that feeling which you have, like, okay, why am I doing this? Am I doing this right? Am I screwing up? Do you think that feeling is always going to be there, or do you think it's going to subside as time goes on?
I know for a fact that it is going to subside as time goes on because I've experienced this before in other aspects, in other fears that I've conquered, in public speaking, in stand-up comedy, in poetry, you name it, right? If you're listening and you have a fear that you really want to get rid of, but you have no idea how, this is the formula. The formula is to be consistent. That is the only thing that you need is to be consistent, right? There is a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. In that, he talks about if you have a skill that you want to get good at, right? And you work on 1% of the skill every single day, by the end of the year, you will be 33 times better at that skill. Just 1% every single day, right? So let's take public speaking for an example. Okay, many people have a fear of public speaking, they want to get rid of it and whatnot. So the idea is this whole chunk of scariness called public speaking, right? What is the smallest component of that fear that you can strip away from public speaking and work on this 1% only? Okay, so for example, if you take public speaking, the smallest 1% that you can strip away from this fear might be thinking on your feet, impromptu table topics, right? You don't need an audience to practice table topics. All you need is yourself and your mind. Give yourself a topic, stand in front of the mirror, speak on it 30 seconds once a day. That's all you need, right? The smallest 1% that you can strip away from this large chunk of scariness and just work on that every single day. That is the key. You might even decide that you all right, I'm going to go to a Toastmasters meeting every week, right? One Toastmasters meeting every week just to get over the fear of speaking, right? It's fine. If you want to tackle the fear at once, it's fine. The most important thing is that you have to be consistent. I don't care that you've built the biggest business in the world in one day. All right. But what I do care is that you work on the smallest business in the world every single day. It's not important to do something huge just for every single day. There is this concept that I absolutely love, which is called a non-zero day. Okay. So if you want to get better at public speaking, say you decide that you are going to, or let's just say that you want to get better at writing. This is an easy example to explain. So you say to yourself that I'm going to write one page every day because I want to become an author and I want to get into the habit of writing. So I'm going to write one page every day. So you're motivated at the start, right? So you write, I don't know, for a week, you're very consistent. And then one day you go to work, you're having a really horrible day. The boss shouts at you, the
Yeah.
clients are horrible, you've had a really long day, the traffic was horrible, and you come home, you're so exhausted, and all you want to do is just change and go to bed. But then you remember, oh, I promised myself that I wanted to write one page every single day. And you're like, it's fine, I'm really tired, I'm going to give myself this break and I'm going to go to bed. All right. So
Yeah.
then you go to bed, you wake up the next day, you have another horrible day. Let's say you have 2 good days and then you have one more horrible day. And then you tell yourself, I had a horrible day 2 days back. So I'm going to take this day off as well. And then over time, you can see you're only having spurts of energy where you write consistently. And after that, you're breaking off anytime your
Goes
day is bad,
down.
right? And that is life because you're not going to have exactly you're not going to have good days all the time in a row, right? You are going to have bad days, you are going to have days where you don't want to do anything, but
Yeah.
the important thing is consistency. And this is where the concept of non-zero day really jumps in, because when you're having that bad day and you're going to bed, right, ask yourself what is stopping you from writing one sentence, because up until that point where you get in bed, it's a 0 day because you've done nothing to go towards your goal. But the
Yeah.
moment you write one sentence, just one sentence, right, as useless as that might sound, but the moment you write one sentence, your day transforms into a non-zero day. And that is the only thing that's important. You want to continue after Salah?
Yeah. Sure. 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 So I'll just pause it right now. Yeah.
Okay, so the moment from up until the moment where you got into the bed, right, and you haven't made any progress towards your goal of writing a page a day, it
Mhm.
was a 0 day, right? But the moment you write that one sentence, it has now become a non-zero day. And now, how hard would it be to write one sentence, right? Just one sentence, not a page, just one sentence, because you've had a horrible day. So if we can get into that practice of anytime we're having a horrible day, anytime we don't really want to work towards our goals, right? If we just do the bare minimum, the 1% of the 1%, right? uh, the 1% of the 1%, and you get into the habit of having non-zero days every single day, you become consistent. And when you become consistent at something, you are bound to get better at that thing. And when you get better at that thing, right, for me, it's the fear of putting myself on the internet. So if I become consistent at putting myself out there, and I become better at putting myself out there, the only logical way is that the fear of putting myself out there will decrease over time. It will never stay the same, right? Fear is something that only is amplified by the unknown. And the only way you can get rid of the unknown is by exploring that fear, right? So if you're afraid to put yourself out on the internet, you explore that. You put yourself out on the internet. And when you explore that fear, the unknown reduces, and so does the fear. It's the only logical way. And I've experienced this personally many times in my life.
It's absolutely amazing, and it's very, very true. Actually, whatever you're saying, Ammar, this reminds me of a quote what I heard Will Smith telling. Okay, so when Will Smith was in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, right? I'm sure you
Skydiving,
might have
right?
heard of this skydiving. Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
I've watched that.
What he
Same
says is
experience with Will Smith.
definitely same here. So what he says was just as he was in the air, and right before he jumped out, he can literally hear the countdown. That feeling of adrenaline, that fear per se, is only there for a very split second. And as soon as he jumped out, you get this feeling of euphoria. You feel so happy and you feel excited, right? Because your body is pumped up with adrenaline. So, in summary, what he said was whatever it is you want in life is on the other side of fear.
Yeah. My
Exactly.
favorite quote. My favorite quote. I
My
use it
favorite
all
quote
the
too.
time because it is so true, you know?
Yeah.
Like think about something that you were afraid of, right? If you've been to Toastmasters like yourself, you're afraid of public speaking and you go to Toastmasters, you work on that fear, and now you're just exposed to an array of opportunities, you know, because of Toastmasters. Putting the word Toastmasters on your CV enhances your CV so much. And when you go to a new place, because of the skills that you acquire via Toastmasters, you are able to network with people. And that networking will open you up to an infinite more opportunities in your professional, personal, creative, physical, whatever life you have, you know? And if you really think about it, if you had not been courageous enough to take that first step in conquering that fear, you wouldn't really have been exposed to any of it, right? And the best things that you could have in your life is because you were able to get to the other side of that fear. And that quote has, ever since I heard it, honestly, one of the best quotes I've heard. It's my absolute favorite quote.
It is. It really, really is. It speaks wonders to me. And to give you another quote as well, this is a quote. I can't remember exactly who it was by, but the quote goes like this. Okay, this is in relation to the non-zero day you were talking about, right? So what they said was, if you're gonna have a bad day, maybe your boss scolded you, maybe you got scolded by your significant other, maybe any single element that contributes towards you having a bad day. I want you to picture it like this, okay? Just imagine you have $86,400 in your account right now. Imagine if I, maybe somebody else, maybe your significant other just took $1 or $2 or $3 out of your account. Would you honestly be upset about the $2 or the $3 stolen from your account, or would you focus on the balance amount of money that's going to be there? Would you be upset, Ammar?
No, I'd focus on the balance.
You focus on the balance, just like that. In any given day, every one of us is gifted with 86,400 seconds in a day. So if I come to you right now and if I steal 5 seconds of your day, are you going to focus on that lost 5 seconds? Or are you going to make up for the balance to make it an even better, productive one, right?
It's so true. Yeah, another way that I like to look at it is when you're set on doing something and you've had a horrible day, right? And all you would want to
Yeah,
do is just curl up into a ball and just go to sleep. If you think back to any day, any recent day in your mind that was horrible, that was absolutely horrible, right?
yeah,
And you just wanted to get through and wake up to a better day, ask yourself, was that day really that bad where you couldn't have squeezed out one sentence or one push up if you wanted to get fit, or one, I don't know, one photo if you want to get, if you wanted to become a better photographer, or one article if you want to become more knowledgeable? Was that day so horrible that you couldn't have squeezed out 1% of the 1% that you're working on? Right? And the answer almost always is no. Our brain is biased to the position that we're in right now, where we amplify it to be everything in our lives, right? So if you're having a bad day, this bad day is everything. And that is the bias at work. When we get better at recognizing this bias and really understand that we're capable of doing something regardless of how bad the day is, that is when you become consistent, and that is when you're able to conquer stuff, get better at skills, because consistency is really the foundation of every single thing that you want to do. If you're consistent, you got your whole life ahead of you, because it makes you more reliable, more dependable, more energetic, more whatever you name it. Everything that you want to be has to come from being consistent.
absolutely true. Absolutely true, and I think you can correct me if I'm wrong over here as well. When it comes to consistency and when it comes to being a content creator in a brown household as well, right? We value opinions so much that we forget to focus on the bigger picture, that is ourselves, our development, and our growth as well. We are so, how do I say this, intoxicated with what people have to say about us. We lose track of the bigger picture. So, I mean, what do you think people should do? Because me personally, I do believe you can take the positive comments, the positive remarks, whatever it is. But when you focus on the naysayers and the negativity, don't feel upset by it. Use it. Use it to improve yourself. Okay, I got a negative comment today. How can I overcome it? But people don't really do that, do they?
Yes. So when you want to do something creative, criticisms and negative comments, or even just one weird look, right? Say you want to go running. The first time I
Yeah.
went running, I was so self-conscious of the fact that I was running. I only ran when there was bushes and trees to cover me from the road, because I was so self-conscious, right? So I
Mhm.
started going. I walked whenever I was in public. Anytime I was in an isolated area, that's when I ran,
Yeah.
because I was so self-conscious. I was like, so when I ran and then someone just looked at me, I was like, dude, this guy is judging me because I'm running wrong. How can you run wrong? Running is natural, right? But my mind was like, oh, I'm running wrong. So it really amplified it for me, and I became really self-conscious. So one thing that I like to do, something that a trick that I've developed over the years of doing things that are uncomfortable, I like to have these people in my life that I call change champions, right? This is a business studies term that I stole with it from this. So basically, when I put out my first ever episode, right, of podcast, I you have to have people in your life that you can trust, right, and that you know have your best interest in mind. So when I put out my first episode, I was so scared of the criticism that I might receive, but at the same time, I was wary of the fact that people are going to criticize no matter what I do, right? I can do the best thing in the world right now, and there would still be someone out there who will criticize me. So I went to two people in my life, right? And I told them, look, I'm starting a podcast. This is what I want to do. But at the same time, I'm afraid that I might quit too early. But at the same time, I'm also afraid that I would continue doing this even though if it's not right for me, right? Because that happens too, right? You want to do something new, but it's really not right for you, and you end up making a fool out of yourself. That happens too. So you don't want to fall into either extremes. You want to be flat in the middle, correct? So you go to these people, people who you know have your best interests at heart, and you tell them, to be brutally honest with you. And these are people that I like to call change champions because you're changing yourself, but they're championing you through the process. So the first 2 weeks, the first 3 weeks of me putting out episodes in of the podcast, I only took feedback from these two people. Only
Okay.
these two people. I didn't listen to anyone else, right? Because I knew that whatever they tell me would be teams if I go by this process. So anytime I receive feedback from someone else, right, and it was a what is it? Say was a point of improvement that they gave me.
Mhm.
I went and told these two people of my life. I told them, look, this is the feedback that I received. What do you think? And I got their perspective on it. Why? Because I know for a fact that they have my best interest at heart. So if you are starting something new and you are afraid of people who are going to criticize you and whatnot, recognize that that's always going to happen, but also make life easy for yourself by having 4 to 5 people that will act as change champions to you, right? And will give you brutally honest feedback on whether what you're doing right now is right for you or not. If it's not right for you, you know that they have your best interest at heart, so you can stop it. But if it is right for you, then you will be able to recognize when other people start talking crap about you. You'll be like, no, these people are just jealous or they don't get it, because I know for a fact that these 5 people on my side that have my best interest at heart think otherwise. And these can be your parents, your colleagues, your siblings, your best friends, whoever. The criteria is these people must have your best interest at heart.
Mhm. I absolutely adore that mindset right there. That mindset is very, very, it's a very beautiful growth oriented mindset, right? Because you see, in today's ever changing world, we live in a very social media, technologically driven world, right? Because you see people on social media and you think they're happy, and you think to yourself, I want to be like that too. What do I have to do to be like that? But at the same time, our motivation, our self-esteem, it gets kicked out of the window or basically flushed down the toilet because of just one negative comment we hear from somebody, right? I believe people should definitely use whatever they hear in terms of positivity or negativity to, further develop themselves. And you're absolutely right, you know. And this does not apply to being a content creator or to being a podcaster itself, right? This can apply to any single aspect of your life. It can definitely push you forward, I would say. You just got to have that right mindset, that growth oriented mindset to develop yourself. Yeah.
100%. Forgive me, I'm a bit distracted here because my headphones just ran out of battery and your voice is breaking up. So let me
Okay.
just quickly switch my headset so I can hear you better.
All right. Cool, cool. No worries. Okay. Are we good to go? Much better.
Hello?
Hey,
Yo. All
can you?
right. So,
All right. Cool.
yep. Experience of being a podcaster always have backup in handy.
Oh
So
yeah,
I didn't have
absolutely true.
distraction. Sorry about that.
Absolutely. No worries, no worries at all. So, to cap it off, I would say, if any of our listeners and viewers here today watching, if any of you guys want to do something, if you guys want to pursue a passion, if you guys want to maybe start a side hustle or a side project, but the problem is that anchor of negativity is weighing you down. Amar, what would you have to say to that? What advice would you give to them?
Okay. All right. So the two most important things is to be consistent and to have non-zero days.
Mm.
the foundation. That is literally what you need to do to get better at things. Be consistent and have non-zero days. If you're afraid of having negative opinions hinder your potential and your growth, have change champions with you, people who have your best interests at heart, and take feedback only from them until you get a better idea of what you're doing, until you get a better idea of how you view what you're doing, right? Because when I first started my podcast, I didn't really know if what I was doing is good or bad, right? But with the feedback that I received from these two people in my life, I was able to get a better idea of what I was doing with the podcast, right? Until you get that, or until you're sure that the people who say negative stuff or criticisms, until you're sure that those criticisms won't throw you off what you're doing, have change champions in your life. And the third most important thing is, regardless of what you want to pursue, regardless of what you want to conquer, what fear you want to conquer, you always have to be curious, right? And this is something that I regret. One of my biggest regrets is that when I was like in school, when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, why didn't I really hone down and try to develop a skill? I was very focused on going to school, coming back from school, and just, but why didn't I really, like, everyone has interests, right? Like, you have to have a curious mindset. And this is advice for the people, the younglings who are listening to this, people who are who are still in school, you could say, right? You have an interest, right? Think about something that really interests you and explore that interest without any obligation, without any ties, right? There's nothing tying you to this interest. You're only exploring this interest because you are interested in it, right? It's not because of school, it's not because of parents, it's not because you have to do it, but it's because you want to do it. What is that one thing that you want to learn because you want to do it? And just explore that. Because the mindset that you will gain from that is that it'll open up other avenues for you in your life. You know, like, I'm thinking right now, because I was so interested in speaking, if I had pursued that interest, explored that interest more, I would have started this podcast way longer, way before university, way before I graduated from school, right? Before my A levels, before my O levels, right? It's very entirely plausible for that to happen because I had explored my interests, you know? So the main thing is you have to be consistent, you have to have non-zero days, you have to have change champions. But something that ties all of this together is you have to develop a curious mindset. And you might think, like, what's the point, right? Because there are some people who want to just live in this world and that they have no ambition to be someone, which is completely fine. You know, you might just want to have a peaceful, happy life, settle down, have a family and whatnot. Completely fine. But like, the purpose of your life has to account for something. You know, you have to influence someone, right? Some people, right? Some people, right? Say, you know, and you can only decide what you want to give off to your kids by having a curious mindset, by developing your identity and understanding yourself better. When you do that, you're able to give your kids, give your followers, the community, something only from within you. And you can only do that if you're curious and you develop yourself more and more and more. As Saif said, you have to have a growth mindset, because that is the only way that is literally the only mindset that you should have when you're young.
Well said, well put, and well concluded as well. And I want to say one thing actually. Thank you so much, Ammar, for appearing on my podcast. It really, really means a lot to me. And I will be dropping Ammar's podcast, which is Let's Agree to Disagree, in the caption below. Please do make sure to give him a like, a follow, and a share as well for more inspirational and informational content. And with that being said, I think you better start rolling out a couple of episodes as well, Ammar.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. That's why, disclaimer: my podcast is very, very inactive right now because, as I
yeah,
said before, just remember, I'm not dead. I will come out with a new episode. I just need some time to do
exactly.
stuff logistically. And also, Let's Agree to Disagree was the first version of my podcast, and then my second version was Interesting Maybe, and that was where you, Safe, came onto my podcast. And my third version of the podcast is something else. I haven't really decided the name, but it's there. It'll come some way somehow. But until then, yeah, just also I forgot to tell you, on behalf of
Okay.
Safe and I, if anyone out there is listening who wants advice on something that they want to pursue creatively but have no idea where to start, please slide into my DMs. I'm always happy to help.
Mhm.
I don't want to pose as the expert on this, but because I've done it, I have experience. You can't deny that. I have experience because I've done it. So if you I feel like I'm a nice person, so you don't have to be afraid of me. So if you wanna like talk, I'm sure Safe would say the same. If you want to talk it out, like get some advice or whatnot, I'm always happy to help. And yeah, other than that, Safe, thank you so much for having me. This is actually the return to podcasting. Your podcast is my return to podcasting because I was off podcasting for like
Absolutely.
3 months now.
Love it.
First
Absolutely
time,
love it.
first time I've picked the mic in three
Yeah.
months. So yeah, it was really enjoyable.
Absolutely love to hear that, Ammar. Really, really proud to hear that actually. And for the lovely viewers watching this episode, thank you so much for tuning in to the very second episode. Being a content creator in a brown household, was it easy? Yes, it was. Can you do it as well? 100% you can do it. Not only regards to
200%.
podcasting, 200%, exactly. Not only regards to content creation or being a podcaster, in anything you can do. Like I always tell my friends, if you believe it inside here, you can achieve it inside here and you can achieve it out there as well. From Mindset
Very nice
Talks.
flow. I'm gonna steal that.
Feel free to do it, Ammar. And from Mindset Talks, good night and ciao.